everyone, my name is Jay. If you're new to the channel, I am also new to YouTube, so I hope that you'll join my journey and bear with me while I try and figure out my intro. So I'm going to be focusing on talking about something that I is very dear and personal to me and have experienced a lot, which is major life changes and dealing with life transition, which I feel often pushes us to take our life into that next level and make real sustainable changes in our life. Unfortunately, it's those changes that are forced on us that make us realize that we're not in the right place or living life in our truest way, and even in environments that are maybe not as healthy for us. Today I'm sharing something that is deeply personal and transformative, my journey from chaos to calm. I'm going to walk you through two grounding techniques that really helped me amidst a really chaotic time in my life. I know many of us face things that we weren't really prepared for. I hope that these two techniques are helpful for you. There was a time where I felt completely overwhelmed. After an injury, I found myself bedridden and unable to work. I ended up depleting all of my savings and I had to give up my apartment. I was dealing with a disability, so I was still recuperating through all of this. And I ended up living in Airbnbs, and I even got to a point where I had no money, I had no place to live, so I was looking at possibly being unhoused in the next 2 days. I had done everything in my control to try and find housing. So the first thing I did to start releasing that tension and get myself out of that survival mode and that victimhood spiral that I was in, I gave myself permission to temporarily escape my reality. And that was to start reframing the way I was seeing what was ultimately happening in my life. So I told myself that for 1 hour, I was going to make it as if I was just somewhere in an Airbnb on like vacation. And I was going to give myself 1 hour of focus where I just sat down and just watched TV. And that became a way to like fully accept where I was at, but also allowed me a way of like escaping and getting all of that tension, and of course getting myself out of that spiral. So for a full hour, I committed and I just watched something on Netflix. I can't really remember, but I just remember watching a show. I was going to give myself that hour and that discipline to just let myself let go, in a sense, like let go of control. I had done everything that I could in my power. I had everything that I could that was available to me, and now it was time to just focus and allow myself not to be able to spiral. And what ended up happening is that this healthy way of escaping and letting go of that tension allowed me to step out of survival mode and that victimhood spiral that I was on. What ended up happening is that looking back now, when I think of that time, it actually reminded me, and the reason that I was spiraling is that when I was 15, I actually faced being unhoused. In that moment, I began to like deal with it in a grown-up way. I showed up for my inner child to let her know that everything was going to be okay. And the way that I was actually able to do that was by the second technique, which is an awareness of the present moment. Eckhart Tolle says that the way to let go and heal the past is to come into the present. I actually found Eckhart Tolle's book a few months later when I was in temporary housing. And after I started reading the book, I remember like all the dots just started connecting. By focusing on the present, I realized that nothing is really an emergency in this moment. In the book, he says, if you really think about it, we really don't have any problems. Problems are either in the past or in the future. But in this moment, we don't have a problem. And even though if you think back to my situation and think like, well, you were 2 days away from being unhoused, that seems like a pretty problem, a problem that is here and now. But it wasn't anything in this moment that in the next second I was going to be out on the street. I actually had 2 days before that happened. So in this moment, there wasn't a problem. I was okay. And by focusing and spiraling in what may happen, the next day or the next day after that, I was actually creating a problem in this moment and I couldn't come to a solution. So that awareness allowed me to confront, like I said, show up like the adult that I needed when I was 15, fully accept my situation, don't let myself get out of control, and so that I can be able to deal with my situation. I always love to bring science and spirituality together because I feel more and more science is proving that spirituality really works. And I say that because when I read like Eckhart Tolle's book and all of the dots started connecting, I felt like that book showed up exactly when I needed it to show me that I was healing and that I was actually rewriting things for the future. Eckhart Tolle talks about connecting to our higher source. And the only way we can do that is in stillness. When we go unconscious and spiral, we actually lose our connection to be able to find that solution. It's the same thing in science. Science talks about like when you're constantly focusing on a problem and you won't let go, like you're just like, I guess, being stubborn and like just trying to pound it out and figure it out. You're literally, the neurons in your head stop firing and things go haywire. It is only when you step away, when you're at rest, and that's why a lot of people figure out things while they're in the shower or where they're cleaning or other things, because you're just not focused on it. And I love how those two things come together, the spirituality aspects and the scientific aspect, because it's been proven once that happens, the neurons start connecting and you start figuring out the solution. Or even in the way that Eckhart Tolle talks about it, things just seem to solve themselves without you having the need to control everything or allow yourself to spiral. I noticed that when I was doing that exercise and just focusing on letting myself be present in that moment, these opportunities, it just started coming up. And the reason I hold my hands is because I feel like I was coming here at this point where I felt like I was going to fall off. I didn't know what was going to happen. And when I let go and accepted and dealt with things in the present moment instead of the past, like in my case, the 15-year-old self, another hand would show up right on time and then another one right on time. It just felt like there was these bridges continuously like being shown up for me. And although, there's just so many sayings, there's like a hand, stairs, people talk about having this faith before the next step even shows up. So whether you're dealing with it in a spiritual sense or a scientific way, the solution, right, the next step eventually shows up, but it never shows up from being stuck in the mind or being stuck in the past. Through my therapist, I actually learned that regulation, self-regulation, was a new way of being. The gift that she gave me was actually the exercise of the 5 senses, which I've talked about in other videos. I won't go too much into the 5 senses technique because you can look it up, but it's basically using all your senses to ground yourself. What is the 5 things you see? And then you go down to what are the 4 things that you can touch, that you can smell, and that allows you to ground yourself. So when you're in the moment, finding that grounding technique really helps you so that you're able to now start being aware. She also told me not to be too hard on myself and have that compassion, because I told her, yes, I've developed this awareness, but I can't, I feel like I can't control it. I just still spiral, or I still get angry or whatever it is that I was dealing with and couldn't control my emotions. And that's also part of it as well. The awareness, the grounding yourself, and then having that awareness that it's happening, then you're able to make those changes. That awareness teaches you about yourself so that you are then able to retrain yourself. You're able to catch yourself and then retrain yourself into this new way of being. These techniques have been pivotal in my life in order to take my life from complete chaos into calm, even in the midst of something that people think there's no way, I don't have time to slow down and just be. But it's actually the best time. When we have chaos in our life, or when anything is coming up for us that is triggering us from the past, that's actually the best time, like Eckhart Tolle mentions, to be able to heal the past, because it is your past that is responding to this. So in order to heal that, your new response has to allow that trigger to come up. Do your new techniques, bring yourself in the present so that you're able to heal the past and now move forward into the future, having this blueprint in a sense. Just remember that embracing the present and dealing with it in a new way, and in my case, dealing with it as a more responsible, healed adult, allowed me to heal the past, which obviously was very necessary, and start changing things, not only for my present self, but for the future. Please share your thoughts and your comments below, and I would love for us to continue this journey together. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to like the video. Thank you so much for watching.